the true believers right here till the end of the day. That's good. I don't think I need to introduce our ABF people because you've already met them. Olivia is going to be the presenter, and what we're looking at today in this final session is some of the intelligence analytic techniques the Border Force and the Maritime Border Command are using to turn, data into actionable insights and intelligence. And one thing I might be interested in, Olivia, because tomorrow we're going to be looking at AI, whether AI, is used in some of the ways that you're going about your business. So Olivia's going to talk, and her colleagues are going to be on the stage to, for the interactive part of the session. So over to you.
Thanks very much for that introduction. And yes, I'm back. I'm sorry. Funnily enough, actually, Lieutenant Commander Booth was my instructor on my intelligence training course, so no pressure from him at all.
It's my fault if it's wrong.
And to quickly answer your question about AI, not in my experience have we used AI for our training or in our analysis at the moment. Not saying, never say never, but we're not seeing it at the moment, or we're not using it at the moment. So yeah, we're going to look over some analytical techniques today. I'll go through what intelligence is, how we look at the threats, what our process is at Maritime Border Command, and what structured analytical techniques we use. So, being intelligence practitioners, intelligence is our favourite word, right? So we love to ask the question why, so what next? We look at intelligence not just as information, but information that, like the raw information that's been processed, contextualized, and assessed for relevance and impact. So I'm going to unpack today what intelligence means to us as Maritime Border Command in our operational context, and how it helps us understand and respond to threats, especially through our foundational equation, being that intent and their threat's capability equals the level of their threat. Information alone doesn't drive decisions. Intelligence does. And in our operational context, intelligence is essential for understanding and responding to threats. The equation that I mentioned before, that's on the screen, reminds us that a threat is not just about what an adversary can do, but also what they intend to do. Intelligence helps us assess both sides of this equation, clarifying motives, evaluating resources, and predicting possible actions. At its core, a threat is any circumstance, event, or actor that has the potential to cause harm, loss, or disruption. Threats can be intentional, such as a cyber attack or theft, or unintentional, like a natural disaster or accidental loss of data. They may target individuals, organizations, assets, or systems, and the key characteristics of these threats include the source, so who or what is behind the threat, their intent, is an act deliberate or accidental, a threat's capability, do they have the means to cause harm, the target, what is at risk, who is being targeted, people, property, data. So how do we evaluate these threats? We use a systematic process that I'll take you through shortly that helps us understand their potential impact and likelihood. This enables us to prioritize resources and develop effective mitigation strategies. To adequately evaluate a threat in today's complex security environment, understanding the underlying factors that drive threats is essential. So we start with their motivation. A threat's motivation refers to the underlying reasons that drive a threat actor to act. They can range from financial, political, or objective gains. Desire reflects the intensity of the threat actor's intent to achieve their objective. High desire often relates to persistence and creativity in overcoming obstacles. Confidence is the threat actor's belief in their ability to succeed. High confidence can stem from previous successes, perceived weakness in defenses, or access to effective tools. Resources encompasses the tools, funding, personnel, and infrastructure available to the threat actor. Well-resourced adversaries can launch more sophisticated and sustained attacks. Knowledge refers to the threat actor's understanding of their target, including systems, processes, and vulnerabilities. A high knowledge level can lead to more targeted and effective attacks. A comprehensive understanding of what drives these threats across motivation, desire, confidence, resources, and knowledge enables us to anticipate, prevent, and respond to attacks more effectively. This holistic approach strengthens security posture and supports informed decision-making at every level. So what do I mean when I say every level? So we look at intelligence through operational, tactical, and strategic levels. Strategic intelligence is all about the bigger picture. It involves the ability to anticipate long-term trends, understand complex environments, and set a clear direction for the future. It enables organizations and individuals to define their vision, set goals, and develop plans that align with their mission. Next, operational intelligence. This bridges the gap between strategy and execution. It focuses on the mid-term planning and resource allocation and relies on data from ongoing operation to identify bottlenecks and opportunities for improvement. And then we have tactical intelligence. This drives immediate action. It's highly focused, short-term, and often involves responding to specific situations or challenges as they rise. All levels of intelligence and operations are interconnected and set the direction for operational intelligence to ensure that we're resourced appropriately to enable swift action through tactical operations. And interestingly, MBC, we may not be a wholly strategic agency, however, many of our partners are. Like I was mentioning in my earlier brief, we're the enabling body, we're operational, we matter, we care about what's on water. But in order to do our job, we rely on our strategic intelligence partners to assist us to provide support to operational command to then enact the tactical resolution. So, how do we use our intelligence process? So our process is a structured approach looking at the collecting, evaluating, and disseminating of information to support decision makers, transforming the raw data into actionable insights, helping organizations stay ahead in complex and rapidly changing dynamics. So as depicted on this slide, our process is cyclical, but we look at the direction, collection, processing, and dissemination of information and intelligence. All right, so direction example. So our commander, he provides us direction. What are his priorities? What does he want us to collect on? And what does he want our operational command to respond to? So as I was mentioned earlier, our commander's first priority is people smuggling. So if he wants us to go after a people smuggling threat, he wants to know the corridors of concern on water and where they're targeting. What locations are they targeting for Australian territories on water and also on land? By understanding our commander's intent and our commander's direction, we have resources to collect the appropriate information, the appropriate raw information. Again, MBC, we are not the collection function, but our partners are. We've got so many crucial partners domestically and internationally that feed into us. We are a massive funnel, and the more information, the merrier, but often it takes a huge hit on our resources and our time. Again, like I said, we're the funnel, so we are part of the processing team. Earlier I was referring to how federal police, other law enforcement agencies, they look at persons of interest, vessels of interest, shore elements, offshore elements. We receive all of that data, and it's our job to refine that information to what we need specifically and what our operational command needs to affect an operational response. All right. I've put these on the screen as you'll need them or need to refer to them for the tabletop exercise later this week, and you'll get a copy. But these are the assessment considerations we use for our assessments. So assessment language, from the scale from unlikely to almost certain. This gets a bit complicated as a lot of different law enforcement agencies in Australia slightly vary in their use of this language. But for the most part, we refer to the same sort of ideas. We also follow up with the Admiralty scale. So this underpins the credibility of reporting. This is important because it helps us prioritise what information we put more weight towards. So say with this example, if a report is classified as B2, so usually reliable, probably true, we're going to prioritise that information and work more off that information than we were if it was a D4, so not usually reliable or doubtful. With that said, if the reliability cannot be judged, so if it's F6, so it also can't be judged if it's truthful. That doesn't mean it's not credible. It just means that we don't know. We haven't been able to correlate it to anything yet. We don't have any more reporting. So we go through our processing phase to go through our analysis and to generate a product, an intelligence product, to then provide our operational command or whoever our command is an assessment of a threat, and that guides their operational response. And as this is cyclical, our client, our customer, so if it's operational command, we have to tailor our product to them from the direction. So it can get very complicated, but it's sort of through trial and error and learning on the job that this process becomes a bit more seamless. All right, I'll take you through very quickly now. I've got 4 minutes to go through some structured analytical techniques. I will highlight here that a lot of the time, these techniques we use without even realising it. This is just putting names to processes and ideas. All right, so structured analytical techniques. So, like I was saying before, these just highlight and step out in processes and steps how we as intelligence professionals can more robustly go through our intelligence cycle to provide a more comprehensive assessment for our operational command. So yeah, just streamlines analysis for uncertain and high-risk scenarios, so definitely in the maritime domain, to promote logical reasoning, mitigate bias, foster innovation, and provide indicators and warnings. So we've got our key assumptions check. This refers to the assumptions that we all hold on day-to-day. So these can be personal biases, cognitive biases, and it pretty much just allows us to write all of our assumptions first to identify what's realistic, what's not, to better explain the logic behind arguments, understand the influential factors that have shaped an issue or a threat, stimulate alternative perspectives and approaches to a problem, uncover new relationships and links between various factors, and identify developments that may challenge existing assumptions. All right, I've got a bit of an example here for you. So Mr. Monopoly Man has always worn a monocle. In my memory, he has. And I think I'm pretty reliable. So how valid is this? I think I'm reliable, but I think according to our Admiralty scale, it's probably a C3. But the website, the Monopoly website, indicates that he never has. So what are you going to rely on? my assumption or the website? I'd probably rate that a bit higher as A1. And that leads to my assessment there being it's almost certain Mr. Monopoly Man has never worn a monocle. Brainstorming is another one. This is fairly multifaceted as well and can be quite customizable and personal, but it's just another way to visually represent an intelligence analysis or thinking process. And it's a good way of mapping out your thought processes and, again, looking at biases. It's always really good to follow these processes with more than just one person. So just a quick example. All right, and Devil's Advocate. This is probably my favourite SAT to follow. It's pretty much being the bad guy. So you've got a friend who's made an assessment, has got his argument all together, and then you go in there and pretty much argue that it's not correct, not true. It's got to be respectful, don't get me wrong, and shouldn't get heated, but this just generates the tough questions. It makes sure that someone's argument for their assessment is incredibly robust, because your assessment could, at the end of the day, result in the life or death of someone. So this ensures the safety and credibility of your assessment. Alright, and analysis of competing hypotheses. This one's fairly interactive, and I'll have a quick example next, but I'll just step you through the process. So sort of like science, if you guys remember back to high school, going through and identifying your hypothesis of a threat. So what's your initial assessment without any analysis? Look at the evidence, look at the reporting, compare what reporting you have, and refine your matrix, discuss this reporting, then create, I'd say around 3 or 4 hypotheses from your analysis of that reporting, assess dependency, and report your conclusion. So again, like a funnel in the processing phase, just sort of articulating what's credible, what streamlines your line of thinking. All right. This is as an example. So, where is the boss going for lunch? So, 2 green crosses mean, yep, cool. He's probably gonna buy lunch. He's always bought lunch at Burger Barn and Subroad. He rarely makes homemade lunch. Doctor has a few things to say, but doesn't really take that into consideration. So if we count that all up and tally, so a fair few green crosses there, few little red crosses, but you sort of look for what's the data mathematically saying or indicating. So really their Subroad's looking pretty popular. So I'd say it's highly likely the boss is going to go for Subroad. So that's it. That's my brief for you today. Thank you very much for your attention. I know it's been a long day, so hopefully dinner's not too far away.
Thanks, Olivia. Fascinating. I'm going to take the chairman's prerogative. I thought Philippe's presentation was fascinating. Really was, and we ran out of time to really discuss a lot of the points that you raised. I would now like to ask this panel a question relating to Philippe's presentation. In other words, how does your intelligence analysis and techniques inform at all his subject, the legal finish? I mean, when you go about collecting intelligence, it's not for the purpose of prosecution in the way he's talking about, but whether it's maritime crime in fisheries or drugs or people smuggling, at some point you've got to lock up a bad guy, right? So I would like to hear a bit more from this panel to respond to some of the conundrums, and I was absolutely fascinated that section where you were talking about some of the legal ambiguities now where we're trying to leverage digital systems to move towards legal finish. And these people must be looking exactly at that question of how you leverage digital techniques and so forth in terms of your own intelligence analytics. So my question to this panel is to respond to his points about some of the problems in legal finish as it relates to your profession of intelligence analyst.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Very interesting question. First of all, I'd like to say that Maritime Border Command doesn't actually own any of the legislation. We are always acting on behalf of another agency.
Right.
So we are being led by the legislation holders who are in charge of doing the prosecutions for each operation, depending on what threat we're looking at. If we are looking at a potential border control drug importation, there's a number of criteria that the Federal Police will be looking at. Off the top of my head, it's the intent, or do we have information that suggests it's coming for Australia or the Australian market? Mm-hmm. What maritime zone can we intercept it in is very important. So we'll have our maritime domain awareness team constantly monitoring the vessel to ensure that we're intercepting that vessel in the right zone. So we have the right legal backing in order to conduct that boarding. If we're talking about fishing, we are more closely aligned with our Australian Fisheries Management Authority in terms of prosecuting illegal fisheries cases. Once again, less so on the maritime domain awareness side. We more rely on our aerial surveillance to prove where they are, what they have on board from our images. Are they equipped to fish? What maritime zone are they in? How many people are on board? Do they have fish on board? And we take all those into consideration before we will send an asset out. Once we've decided to send an asset out and intercept that vessel, then we have all sorts of other evidentiary requirements, imagery of catch and fishing equipment, GPSs on board, offline maps, all that type of thing that can help the prosecuting agency take them into the courts and have successful outcomes. But I agree with Philippe, it is very hard. We have had cases, fisheries cases, where we've been unsuccessful in the prosecution where it's been ambiguous in whether they've actually crossed the EEZ or not. When we're talking 1, 2, up to 10 miles, so what we would call a shallow incursion. Sometimes that is very hard to prove based on the systems that we have, and they'll claim things like, oh, we just accidentally drifted and we were conducting fisheries or fishing activity at that point in time. So unless you have photographic evidence from a plane being in the right spot at the right time, those ones are very hard to prosecute.
All right, well, thanks, Nathan. Any other comments, questions? Yes, sir. Maybe wait for the mic. Here it is.
No question, just a comment to make. I have heard your presentation, also the previous one. To prosecute a criminal or crime, whatever, or a violator, the law enforcing agency must meet the jurisdiction triangle. One is jurisdiction over the crime itself, jurisdiction over the person, and lastly the jurisdiction over the place. Any violation or on land, it's easy to address, because the jurisdiction over place is just to determine under which police station it has taken place. But at sea, as the UNODC representative said, that from the shore, more you go towards the sea, the less the jurisdiction you have of the coastal nation. For instance, if it is within the internal water, the coastal nation has the sovereign right to exercise all the authorities, all the laws of the land. But if it is, again, if it is in the territorial sea, you have the same right, but any third nation's vessel can take innocent passage. But for contiguous zone, a coastal nation only have 4 sovereign rights. We all know, customs, fiscal, sanitary and immigration. Other than these 4, even no one can board a vessel claiming to be taking innocent passage. And if it is in the easy, then no laws can be exercised other than, conservation, exploration, exploitation, management of the living non-living resources. And in continental shelf, it further reduces only the exploration, management and conservation of the non-living resources. So there comes actually the legal framework and what is that? What should I say? The consensus or agreement between the adjoining nations. And again, it is critical actually. If even the nations do not have the authority in its easy or beyond easy, if it is in high sea, then the situation is more complicated. So thereby, it is really tricky for us, the practitioners and the law enforcement agencies, to really deal with the case. I don't know how to do that. To go with that, with your experience, if I can highlight a little more. Thank you.
Sorry, Anthony.
Please.
I thought your question that you posed before was really interesting, and then talking about jurisdictions and how that affects it kind of piles on. I think it's an interesting two sides of a coin, because in some ways when you talk about intelligence versus legal close, legal finish, intelligence is predictive, theoretically, like fundamentally you look forward. Legal close is about looking backwards and proving what happened. So I think where it meets in the middle is analysis and understanding information. And it uses a lot of the same tool sets, but I think you're looking at it from 2 very different perspectives. Intelligence, you want to forward predict what is going to happen and how we can prevent it. And I think looking at the case study from Liv this morning about, I can't remember which vessel it was, but the one that hung off the east coast of Australia for 3 months. Intelligence said it was there. Intelligence said it was probably going to do something illegal, but it never did. Therefore, there was no legal close. In that case, intelligence prevented the action, which, and not denied the legal close because they didn't do anything wrong. And then going back to legal, it's the other way. So you have to wait for them to do something, almost denying the intelligence or waiting for something to happen so you can then build some sort of prosecution case for it to work out. So kind of meets the middle maybe.
That's very thoughtful. Did you want to say anything, or Philip? Maybe just to respond to that.
I think that's perfect of Lieutenant Commander Booth said. It's a matter of perspective. So achieving legal finish comes from another perspective. It's not to act upon information, but also to use this information as evidence to prove culpability. So they are complementary perspectives, and that's why I ended my presentation talking about Information Fusion Center, because we have different capabilities, complementary, in an Information Fusion Center, and that creates a checks and balance, and one validates each other. So that's from the legal finish perspective, that's the value of having this expertise under the same umbrella and working together.
Good afternoon. So my question is to the panel, and if I again take the liberty to just go back to the previous session's presentation where you had spoken about the case studies, and my question is about the specific case of vessel of interest 2508. Perhaps you had mentioned that. It was, the picture which you showed was a small boat. So my question is, how did you first of all latch onto that particular vessel of interest? Because as you said that it sailed from Hong Kong and then traveled for almost about a month, came towards Western Australia. So what prompted the first trigger? What was the trigger to track that vessel? That is first. And second is just a comment that you just brought out that threat is a combination of intent and capability and opportunity. So opportunity will be available. You know, it's for the perpetrator to find out where the opportunity. So as long as the capability and intent is there, so then I think would it not be appropriate not to prosecute, but at least to intercept and prevent an incident from happening rather than waiting for the incident to take place and then carry out legal actions.
While the guy's coming up to talk about the case study, I think that final point, I think, is potentially the difference between something like a military definition of threat and a law enforcement definition of threat. Military, we want to prevent the threat, right? Because there's no law enforcement that's going to stop a missile hitting the ship. But from a legal perspective, you have to wait for something to happen before you can do the prosecution. It's great that you prevented crime, and that's a big long-term thing. But if your goal is prosecution, you do have to wait for something, which I think potentially is where you can say the opportunity for the threat to happen, whereas we prevent that. But I think you might end up splitting hairs about definitions and doctrine.
No piracy has been conducted, or it's not happened. Or perhaps just boat laden with explosives, or a boat with fishing gear which is not mandated or it's not regulated, or a boat with drugs. So you can't just let it go. So there is an issue here of jurisdiction, but as information sharing, as also as enforcement, there has to be some kind of I won't say solution, but some kind of action which we can take. Yeah.
And I think that's fundamentally the problem, right? You can't do anything about it until they do something, but if they do something, something bad happens, and you don't want that to happen, which it's the problem. You can deter in multiple different ways, and I think ultimately it comes down to what's the level of harm that action can do. Are they just doing some illegal fishing? Whatever, let them fish, then arrest them, and that's a deterrence. Are they going to shoot people? Maybe try and stop them first. And I think it's a contextual situation that changes your evaluation of the threat.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so very briefly, with that first case study we had, the one that headed towards Western Australia, unfortunately I was on shift when that happened as well. Seems to be just my bad luck. We did have good luck that day. We actually had a aircraft aerial asset that was flying off our Cocos Keeling's Islands, and it actually saw the vessel. It was a vessel that did not match any normal type that we were seeing during that time, and that time of the year in particular. It was heading directly for the Southern Ocean. It did not look seaworthy. The seas down there are obviously quite violent. We did not believe that it was a vessel that would be able to safely take on the Southern Ocean and resupply fishing vessels. So again, it was just a case of outside of pattern life, something we hadn't seen before. It had a small tender on the back, which is not entirely uncommon, but it did not look like it was going to be able to go too far south and resupply fishing vessels there. So therefore, eventually the assessment was made that it was probably intending to get up to some nefarious activity off our coast.
When I was talking about complementary expertise, that works both ways as well. It's not very common for law enforcement because of sea blindness to understand the practicalities of the maritime domain that ABF or the Navy will understand. Like, for example, one of the activities that GMCP implements is the simulated trial. So I had during one of these simulated trials, one of the prosecutors, he was convinced that it was possible to put on board of a merchant vessel 6 tons of illicit narcotics without the captain knowing it. So because he doesn't understand the maritime domain, he doesn't know that we'll have to operate a crane, it's going to take several hours, that an inspection in that vessel, it takes a long time. So that a lack of different perspectives works both sides. Like not only just I want to avoid the risk to say that we don't achieve legal finish because maritime law enforcement is not thinking that way. It's because there is this gap between response and prosecution and the legal part of maritime response.
Thank you. Since the discussion is on the legal finish, I thought about that the audience might be interested to know something of our experience way back in 2006 to 2009. See, Sri Lanka underwent separatist terrorism for 30 years. And since 1998, we knew that the separatist terrorism element that we were dealing with, primarily the LTTE, is having a shipping network. They were the one who's bringing in the weapons, ammunition, the boats, the outboard motors, the radars. These things were being shipped. So from 1990 onwards, something like that, we had a collection of intelligence reports. First, the responder reports. There were video clips, there were photographs, the patterns, how they would react to us when we challenge them on channel 16, how will be their behavior patterns. So these all things were there. So when the political decision was made in 2006 and the military will came up to go after the gun runner ships in the high seas, we had all set of intelligence reports with us. And the Navy consulted the foremost marine lawyers in the country and briefed them individually that we are going after these guys and we want you guys to think about it and be ready to give us the good legal opinion. So they all came up with the legal opinion that you can take the targets in high seas. And with that, we went out and one by one took out all the 10 the gun runners in high seas. And some of these ships were taken out about just outside the EZ from your Cocos Island and Christmas Island, that far. So while doing that, we learned much. Fortunately, we had all the photograph, everything done, but the biggest advantage to us was that they were not flying any flags. And we had the video recording, audio recording, everything, and we were ready to go even for international courts. If at all this diaspora challenge us that we took illegitimate target and these targets are not military targets. But none of them went for courts because somehow that they knew that we knew the exact thing. So it is very important that these things, the reports, these things are collected and analyzed and make use when the time comes. So the IFCs at that time, there was no IFCs, at that time there were no MRCCs operating, but the takeaway to the audience is that every piece of intelligence report matters. So archive them, database them. They will be coming in handy one day when you encounter these threats. Thank you.
Thank you. Fascinating.
Different sets of legal situations.
Wait for the microphone. Go ahead.
What Admiral Jaratna was talking, in the applications, we have the normal, the Law of the Sea Convention, where we apply the law under the normal situation. But what we faced, what Admiral Jaratna said is it's a conflict situation, it's a war situation. So the self-defense and the preemptive action, that's what the situation then. So, we were eligible to go after them and destroy. So, when we look at the normal situation, of course, the high seas condition in the legal aspects still prevail.
Well, it's not a theoretical debate if you look at what the Americans are doing, interdicting narcotics vessels on the high seas.
It's not narcotics.
I know, but it's an issue that's occupying a lot of international lawyers at the moment. Okay, I'm not going to prolong proceedings, so no one's desperate to put their hand up at this point. So I think I'll finish a little 5 minutes early, Simon. But look, thanks Olivia, thanks team MBC. It was absolutely fascinating unpacking the way you go about your work and the analytic techniques that you're leveraging to inform operations and so forth. So I think we all learned a lot and very clear explanations too. Thank you very much. Please join with me in thanking you. So, Simon, any MC announcement?
Thanks, Anthony. Okay, well done, everybody. That was a packed day. You now get the opportunity to head off for a couple of hours and go and jump in the pool or go to the gym or do whatever you need to do to refresh before we come back here for dinner tonight at 18:30, 6:30 p.m. And then we can look forward to tomorrow. Once again, another packed schedule, but with a few little differences. Yes, we've got some more case studies, IFC, IOR, Sri Lanka and the Western Indian Ocean. We're also we're broaching that subject again of artificial intelligence as an analytical tool when it comes to maritime domain awareness. And we're also looking at doing MDA on a shoestring with Ray Powell from Sea Light tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing you all at dinner tonight. We're pretty in here, back here. We love this room. So I'll see you at 6:30, and tomorrow, if we could all be seated by 8:55 tomorrow for a 9 o'clock start. Thank you very much.